Robert and Buddy's story. When Alzheimer's disease erases all of a person's memories, what remains? Robert's story showed us that love is stronger than memory. In 2008, in a small town called Woodstock in Vermont, 59-year-old Robert Miller lived alone in his two-story wooden house. He was a retired carpenter who had lost his beloved wife Linda to breast cancer just 2 years earlier. The house felt too big, too quiet, without her laughter echoing through the rooms. He spent his days in his basement workshop, making small furniture pieces for his neighbors, rocking chairs, coffee tables, anything to keep his hands busy and his mind off the loneliness. His son Michael lived 3 hours away in Boston with his wife Sarah and their 2 kids, Emma and Jake. They visited on holidays, but Robert could see the worry in Michael's eyes. "Dad, you shouldn't be living alone," Michael would say. But Robert was stubborn. This was his home, Linda's home. One cold November morning, around 6 a.m., Robert was having his usual black coffee when he heard a strange whimpering sound coming from his backyard. He put on his worn leather boots and stepped outside. The first snow of the season was falling heavily, covering everything in a pristine white blanket. There, next to his old metal garbage can, was the most pitiful sight he'd ever seen. A small golden retriever puppy, barely 8 weeks old, was shivering uncontrollably. His golden fur was matted with snow and mud. The little thing was so weak he could barely lift his head. Robert's first instinct was practical. "I can't take care of a dog. I'm getting old. I live alone." But when those innocent, pleading brown eyes met his, something inside his chest cracked open. It was the same feeling he'd had when he first held his newborn son Michael. He scooped up the freezing puppy, feeling how light and fragile he was. "Where did you come from, little guy?" he whispered. Inside the warm house, he wrapped the puppy in Linda's old blue blanket, the one she used during her chemo treatments. He warmed some milk and fed the hungry pup with a small spoon. As the puppy fell asleep in his lap, Robert made a decision that would change everything. "I'll call you Buddy," he said softly, "because I think we both need a friend." But what happened next would prove that this wasn't just about saving a dog's life. Robert and Buddy's friendship became legendary in their small Vermont town. Every morning at exactly 7 a.m., they would walk down Maple Street together. Buddy would run ahead, then circle back to check on Robert, as if making sure his human was okay. The neighbors would smile and wave from their windows. It was the highlight of their day. Mrs. Henderson from next door would always have a treat ready for Buddy. "That dog has brought life back to Robert," she'd tell her husband every morning while watching them pass by. In the workshop, Buddy had his own special corner with a soft cushion where he'd watch Robert work. When Robert used the loud circular saw, Buddy would step outside and wait patiently by the door until the noise stopped. He seemed to understand every tool, every routine. Sometimes Robert would talk to Buddy while working. "Linda always wanted me to build her a garden bench. Boy, maybe we should finally make one for her." Robert did build that bench, a beautiful oak piece that he placed in Linda's favorite spot in the garden. Buddy would often lie beneath it, as if keeping Linda's memory alive too. Evenings were their special time. Robert would sit in his old brown leather recliner. Linda's favorite blue chair was still there beside it, untouched but dusted weekly, and Buddy would curl up right between the 2 chairs. They'd watch the Weather Channel together, Robert's obsession, and Buddy would somehow know when it was time for Robert's evening heart medication at exactly 8:30 p.m. The townspeople often said, "That dog saved Robert's life." And they were absolutely right. Before Buddy, Robert barely left the house except for grocery runs. Now, he was walking 2 miles daily, smiling again, even started going to Murphy's Diner on Sundays, where owner Tom always saved a special spot for Buddy under table 7. "Robert's got his spark back," Tom would tell regular customers. "Haven't seen him this happy since before Linda passed." But life, as Robert would soon learn, had other plans. In early 2015, small but concerning things started going wrong. Robert would put his coffee cup in the refrigerator instead of the sink. He'd call Buddy by his late wife's name, "Linda, come here, girl." Sometimes he'd go outside to check the mailbox and forget why he went out there, standing confused in his driveway for minutes. One morning, he spent 20 minutes looking for his glasses while wearing them. Buddy noticed these changes before anyone else did. When Robert forgot to feed him at the usual 6 p.m. time, Buddy would gently nudge his silver food bowl across the kitchen floor. When Robert left the gas stove on after making scrambled eggs, Buddy would bark persistently until Robert checked the kitchen. The dog had somehow become Robert's unofficial caregiver and safety monitor. Michael started visiting more frequently, driving up from Boston every other weekend instead of monthly. During one chilly October visit in 2015, he found his father standing in the backyard at 11:30 p.m. in his pajamas and slippers, calling out, "Linda? Linda, where are you? Dinner's getting cold." That's when Michael knew something was seriously wrong. The diagnosis came on a gray Tuesday morning in November 2015. Dr. Patricia Williams, a neurologist at Vermont Medical Center in Burlington, ran a series of cognitive tests. Robert scored poorly on memory, orientation, and problem-solving tasks that should have been simple for a man of his intelligence. "I'm sorry to tell you this," Dr. Williams said gently, "but your father has early-stage Alzheimer's disease. The condition will gradually worsen over time. We can slow the progression with medication like donepezil, but unfortunately, there's no cure." Robert, still lucid enough to understand, asked the question that haunted him. "How long do I have? I mean, how long until I'm gone?" "Every case is different," Dr. Williams replied. "Typically, the disease progresses over 8 to 12 years, but some patients maintain certain abilities longer than others." Robert understood what she wasn't saying. His mind, his memories, everything that made him Robert Miller, his love for Linda, his pride in his woodworking, his Sunday morning pancake tradition with Buddy, would slowly, cruelly disappear. But Buddy seemed to understand the gravity of the situation too. From that day forward, the dog's protective instincts intensified dramatically. He would follow Robert everywhere, even to the bathroom. At night, he'd sleep right beside Robert's bed instead of his usual spot by the fireplace, as if standing guard against the invisible thief that was stealing his best friend's mind. During 2016 and 2017, Robert's decline became increasingly noticeable to everyone in town. He started getting lost in his own neighborhood, the same streets he'd walked for 30 years, streets where he knew every crack in the sidewalk. Buddy would literally guide him home, tugging gently on the leash toward the familiar blue house with white shutters. There were still good days and bad days. On good days, Robert would sit on Linda's garden bench and tell Buddy detailed stories about their early marriage, about building this house with his own hands, about the dreams they shared for retirement travel they never got to take. Buddy would sit attentively at Robert's feet, tilting his head and making soft, whining sounds, as if he understood every word and felt every emotion. On bad days, Robert would be confused and agitated, sometimes not recognizing his own kitchen, sometimes forgetting how to use familiar objects like can openers or his electric razor. But Buddy had developed an almost magical ability to calm him down. The dog would simply rest his heavy head on Robert's lap, and somehow, mysteriously, Robert would find peace and clarity again. Michael watched this extraordinary relationship with equal parts amazement and heartbreak. His father might not remember his own son's name some days, might not recognize photos of his grandchildren, but he never, ever forgot Buddy's 6 p.m. feeding time or their morning walk routine. When the doctor made the diagnosis, Robert's world collapsed. Early stage Alzheimer's. But Buddy seemed to sense the change in Robert. He became more protective, reminding Robert when he forgot things. He'd bring his leash for morning walks, go to the kitchen at mealtimes. By early 2018, the situation had become increasingly unmanageable and dangerous. Robert tried to cook scrambled eggs for breakfast at 3 a.m., leaving the gas stove on and nearly starting a kitchen fire. Only Buddy's persistent barking woke up Mrs. Henderson next door, who called the fire department. Another incident happened in January when Robert got lost for 6 terrifying hours during a snowstorm. He had gone out to buy groceries, but ended up wandering through the woods behind his house. Search teams scoured the area while Michael drove frantically for Boston. They found Robert sitting on a fallen log, confused and nearly hypothermic, with Buddy curled up against him, sharing body heat and likely saving his life. The final breaking point came on a Tuesday morning when Michael arrived for his weekly visit. Robert opened the front door, looked at his own son, the boy he'd taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, walked down the aisle at his wedding, and asked with genuine confusion, "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" "I'm calling the police." That night, Michael sat at his childhood kitchen table with his head in his hands while Buddy lay at his feet, sensing the distress. The family meeting that followed was the most difficult conversation Michael had ever had to navigate. His wife Sarah was crying as she held 10-year-old Emma and 8-year-old Jake. The children couldn't understand why Grandpa was acting so weird and why he didn't remember their names anymore. "Is Grandpa sick?" Emma asked. "Will he get better?" Michael had to explain something that no child should have to hear. "Grandpa has a sickness in his brain that makes him forget things. He might not remember us, but that doesn't mean he doesn't love us." And then came the question that everyone was thinking, but nobody wanted to ask out loud. What would happen to Buddy? Dr. Williams had recommended Sunrise Manor, a specialized memory care facility in Portland, Oregon. "It's one of the finest facilities in the country," she assured them during their consultation. "Robert will receive 24-hour professional medical care, specialized therapy programs, and he'll be safe from wandering or accidents." But there was one devastating catch: no pets allowed. The facility had strict policies about animals due to health regulations and insurance requirements. Michael faced an impossible choice. His father needed professional care that only Sunrise Manor could provide. But separating Robert from Buddy felt like a death sentence for both of them. After sleepless nights and tearful discussions, Michael made the heartbreaking decision to take Buddy to his own home in Boston. "He'll be loved and cared for, I promise," Michael told his father, though he wasn't sure Robert understood anymore. The separation day, March 15th, 2018, was devastating for everyone involved. Robert showed no emotional response when Michael hugged him goodbye, when Sarah kissed his cheek, when Emma and Jake said, "We love you, Grandpa." His face was blank distant. But when the transport aide tried to lead Robert to the medical van, while Michael held Buddy's leash, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in weeks, Robert's eyes focused with laser-like intensity. He reached out toward Buddy with a confused, desperate expression, as if something deep inside his deteriorating brain was screaming that this was wrong, that he was forgetting something crucially important. Buddy fought against the leash with surprising strength for a 10-year-old dog, whining and barking, trying to break free to reach Robert. It was as if he knew, with animal intuition, that this might be goodbye forever. The scene was so heartbreaking that even the professional transport aide, a man who had handled hundreds of similar situations, had to wipe tears from his eyes. At the care facility, Robert withdrew further day by day. He wouldn't talk to anyone, wouldn't eat, just stared out the window. The nurses said, "This is normal. It's the natural progression of the disease." But Michael had a different idea. 3 months later, on a Saturday morning, Michael came to the care facility with Buddy. The staff initially objected, but Michael insisted, "Let's just try this once." Buddy started picking up Robert's scent in the hallway. He was wagging his tail excitedly, running toward the right room with some inexplicable instinct. That morning, Robert was sitting by the window as usual, staring outside with empty eyes. He was unaware of anything, until Buddy entered the room. The moment the dog saw Robert, he ran to him as if he had found a treasure he'd been searching for years. He rested his head on Robert's lap and made that old, familiar sound. Robert's hands began to tremble. His eyes filled with tears. And for the first time in 3 months, he spoke. "Buddy, my Buddy." Everyone in the room felt their hearts stop. Robert began petting Buddy's head. It was as if 15 years of memories had suddenly returned. "I found you in the snow," he whispered. "You were so small. You were cold." Buddy was wagging his tail, frantically licking Robert's face. Two old friends were reunited after years. From that day on, Buddy began visiting the care facility twice a week. Robert only came to himself when Buddy visited. He would talk, smile, even tell old stories. Doctors called this phenomenon music therapy effect. But for the family, it was much more. It was love, loyalty, unforgotten friendship. In the final days of 2023, Robert's condition became critical. The family gathered one last time. Robert could no longer even open his eyes. Michael brought Buddy one final time. The old dog, as if understanding everything, quietly laid down beside Robert's bed. Robert's hand was on Buddy. Even as he took his last breath, Buddy never left Robert's graveside. The family tried to take him home, but Buddy would escape and return to the grave. He waited there for days, not eating, not drinking. On the 7th day, when Michael came to the cemetery, he found Buddy at the base of Robert's headstone, looking as if he was sleeping. When Michael took him to the veterinarian said his heart stopped from grief. Two friends remained together, even in different worlds. This story shows us that some bonds are stronger than death itself. True friendship lasts forever.